Today we are talking about what VC, AI, and blockchain has in common. Here are my dear guests, Anne-Grace and Nikolai. Let's start with the questions about the venture capitalist trends in blockchain industry right now. So we've been we've seen a real decline in investment rounds previous years. What it feels like now, and do you have the ongoing trend?
Yeah, I mean, last year in 2023 was a bit difficult year, I think, for the whole ecosystem, right? But not just in the Web3 space, right? If you look at Silicon Valley Bank and so on, so the whole venture space kind of had a bit of decrease. You know, people were not investing in more risk topics. But now, seeing the economy goes up again, we see the trend, in Bitcoin going up, or the coins. So, getting closer to a bull run, we see more and more capital flows into the market again, which obviously then helps the startups to grow. And then, with that, we see as well more startups, more innovation being built again. Okay. But last year, was a bit difficult year.
And what about early stage startups and mature startups? What is the trend? I mean, the early stage is still upwards. Just what are your feelings as well for it?
So yes, so actually the early stage startups had it a bit easier than kind of the scale ups last year. So we see this. We have our own acceleration program. We had our fifth batch there. Roughly 10 startups went through, and all of them, except one, got investment before the program was already done, right? But then the later stage had a bit more difficulty to raise funds.
Okay.
But now, again, seeing more and more capital come in, more and more innovations coming in again.
Anne-Grace, and you are part of a new startup, I would say. So.
Exactly. So I was on the side of raising funds and still raising funds and seeing how 2023 was indeed a bit more complicated before. So I used to be a lawyer before, and it was quite interesting to see how back in the time during the bull run, you had pitch decks for projects that already got funding. And you were just sometimes wondering, did they really think the project through? Because it was so easy. It's like, if the idea sounds sexy, you can get funding. So I would say it was a good trend, because 2023 forced people to think twice before launching a project. And as you said, early stage, if the idea is brilliant, it works, but only if the idea is brilliant. Because people still want to invest in innovation, but they're a bit more cautious, which as a startup makes you work more, because you really need to prove your idea, even if it's very early stage, and convince someone that it's worth investing in. Plus the ticket sizes were smaller, so you also need to think twice how you're spending the money wisely, which at the end of the day is great because you're really thinking everything through. But like from the legal side as well, it makes more sense because the ideas are more perfected. So you don't end up like giving advice to a project that should have not existed from the very start. So it's a good thing, although it made things tougher. And now I'm looking forward maybe to the uptrend, because it will speed up the innovation as well. So the idea is there, you started implementing it, and you still need funding to just boost the entire process.
If I can add something, I think you said something really nice, right? So, in the bull market, people raising money in startups which are not the best startups, they get washed out during the bear market, but then makes it tougher as well for good startups. And you mentioned as well, a good idea, helps and so on. True, but, when you have good founders, this is what VCs are looking at, right? You want to have a good founding team because, in cases they need to pivot, they're ready to execute it.
Yeah, the idea is not enough. It's always the implementation. And then you realize that between the initial idea that you pitched and once you start the implementation with the funding, a lot of things need to change.
Try and fail.
Yeah, but it's good to have some experience to make sure that you don't need to pivot directly, for example.
And not always, right? If you pivot too much, you don't have a focus. Then
exactly.
You lose yourself.
You're just following trends, for example, or this kind of things. And it doesn't really reassure the investor. He's like, okay, so you were following that trend. And then, for example, you shifted to AI, right? Because it was the buzzword. And it gives a weird impression of someone who is not really motivated by the project, but just by chasing some kind of fad.
So, what is your USP and what is your relation to AI right now? What do you think about this?
Well, I even hesitate to mention AI because we use AI as a feature because we believe it can streamline some aspects on the interface for trading for users. It can be a real assistant. Currently, you need to dig into information all around when you're an investor, technical analysis, what's happening on the market. Look at all the factors and you need to compile all of it. Some people do it because they trade full time as their job, but most traders will not. So you may do some mistakes just because you don't have access to the information. And with AI, just when you ask ChatGPT, what are the best places to see in a new city? You can do the same and have like notifications like big markets, everything goes up and this kind of stuff, and just be able to adjust your position. So it's useful, but we don't mention it anymore as a major USP because it was so overused, like this AI trend. So we focus more on these zero knowledge proof technologies and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I lost your answer, right? So as a VC, you always see people coming with trends, right? So we had NFT trends, we had the metaverse trend, now it's the AI buzzword. And the problem with that is, I actually, a startup asked me if they should put AI in the pitch deck, if they would attract more VCs. And like, are you using AI? Does it make sense to use AI? Is this your core product, right? I'm not going to invest in you just because you use AI technology. This is not your core product. Yes, it might help your startup, right? It has a lot of benefits. But, I'm going to invest in the core product. It's just they're not the AI.
Which is tricky because like even opening a door in a conversation that you want to open, because people will start asking a lot of questions like, how do you implement AI? Like normally you're supposed to be able to just mention all the features of your product in the pitch, and then people will just select the main one, right? Because you will put it forward. But now even if you put AI at the very bottom of a slide, the investor will like, can you please tell me more about the AI part? But this was like at the very bottom. It's like not supposed to be the most important thing.
But then it also makes it difficult for you, I guess, right? And it should not be the focus, but you also want to mention it. So it's a
because
tricky
it's
situation.
Useful. So like, I want to mention it, but on the other hand, it may take the attention away from the main USPs. So it's a very difficult position to be in because it feels like basically AI now is backfiring on people using it. Unless you have like this major AI-based product and you will not have the new ChatGPT tomorrow. And you may actually, but we'll see.
Yeah. And what about your main USPs? I mean, why your product is so different on the market right now? And so you have raised the money, and what is the pain point it's deal with it?
Well, the main pain point will be the idea of traders can be very good, but they're still sometimes losing money without being aware of it because of all the market manipulation. So in CeFi now we have increasingly regulations, MiCA and Europe will kick in, just expanding the idea of prevention of front running, no wash trading, and this kind of things to centralized entities in the crypto space, which is great. But it will still happen because regulations don't block these things. They merely deter them. And the platform may still favor some market players, but you still need to prove that this happens, which is a pain point. And in DeFi, there's nothing happening currently. Like we don't even mention it. You have some reports mentioning how it's $1 billion problem, but what is the actual implementation of prevention of this kind of problems?
How you...
Exactly.
Yeah,
so what we're trying to solve is this idea of people want to use DeFi because it has a lot of perks. I mean, it's non-custodial, you have this entire decentralization trend. But on the other hand, do you really want to trade somewhere if you know it's like open waters, everyone is a shark, people may do things that you don't want to be involved in. So basically provide peace of mind by embedding those kind of prevention mechanisms in the code. So it's truly like DeFi style. You don't need to trust us to prevent front running, but the tech does it. And it's made possible thanks to zk proofs and like some new blockchains that are about to launch this year with Polygon, the new start, Polygon Maiden. So this is the major USP. If you want to trade in a safe environment, be sure that no one is tampering with the trading and it's still decentralized. We will have the perfect venue for that.
Great. And what about your investment portfolio? Do you have not similar, but in the same category products?
Well, one side, we have 2 funds, an African fund and the global funds, 6 investments overall. But we invest mostly, so we say, in real blockchain applications. Right, so not on the crypto side.
No, not real applications.
No. But I mean, like real use cases, like in financial sectors and so on. But not directly, right? But however, we are launching a new product called CDPad, which will be a crypto launch pad, where we then invest more in products like that when they're raising tokens. Because on the VC side, we invest mostly in equity. I would say 96%.
And what about the most mind-blowing use case that you invested in?
That's difficult to say, right?
Too much to choose from?
Yeah. I mean, we have, and we need, and there are quite a few interesting ones. So, for example, when you look at the African continent, right, we have, I think, roughly 14 investments in Africa. One's called House of Africa. And there, the land registry, right, it's a total mess. So I think in Nigeria, it's a total mess. And they have actually the 60% or 70% of court cases are property fraud. So people actually have signs outside which says this house is not for sale. What they did now, super simple. They put the land registry on the blockchain, right? I think like 4 or 5 provinces, and in Nigeria, I believe, they are officially acclaimed this as the official land registry, right? Which is really nice. You know, when you look at Africa, it's different use cases, right? But this would not work in Switzerland or...
this one is like profitable project, so it's self-sufficient.
Exactly, but this only works in Africa, right? This will not work here in Europe because, you know, land registry works at the end.
But it's also what's appealing because people still associate crypto a lot with like mostly financial sector, which is not appealing to everyone. Not everyone is interested in that, while this kind of use cases prove that there's much more that can be done. But it's interesting you mentioned Africa because I came across several reports like mentioning how DeFi could help there, like in terms of financial inclusion, how it can be used, for example, like the lending protocols. But then when I look at the DeFi space, products are not targeted towards this kind of audience. So you have something that's designed for DJs looking at how to have the highest yield, and then people who would just like to list some real world asset that is super useful, that has a real impact, and like, how do you bridge the gap?
Yeah, and the thing is also like in these, as I said, the DJs, they create their own problem and solve the problem again with a new product.
Exactly.
Which is kind of the circle that you have there.
So it's complicated in DeFi because you need to satisfy both kind of, and if you're interested, right? And in our case, we're really interested like at both sides, like how to satisfy those DJs because they're super creative. This is how you manage to get great ideas that can be then reused. But then how can we adapt all of this to also attract a different kind of crowd, like more retail, institutionals, but also solve real world problems ultimately, because this idea of banking the own bank, we kind of lost it along the way.
Maybe where the policies and regulations comes in.
Yeah.
What do you think about this new coming up regulations? I mean, all over Europe and also US. So would it impact your startup?
In our case, I mean, we consider your regulations as even a USP outside, because the basic idea was that DeFi really relies on the fact that it's all automated and decentralized to say it's great, but it's not enough. It doesn't guarantee there are any standards. So, for example, in our case, I mean, I was a lawyer, so I'm kind of biased on that, but I see regulations as recipes. And you have like all the tested spices, and basically it said, oh, you're supposed to have reserves. Okay, that may be useful. Let's take that. You're supposed to prevent market manipulations. Obviously, we're taking that. You're supposed to, like, for example, have major risk assessments and also notify the people what is their risk exposure. Great, maybe useful. And we take all of this together proactively. But then when it comes to like MiCA and all these regulations kicking in, they have not really identified yet how they feel about the DeFi. So I would say this is the shady zone. And I mean, DeFi can win a lot by proactively complying, but also in our case, we want to lobby to just show to the regulator what is DeFi,
less
what
aggressive,
is...
you mean?
Yeah, because for DeFi, it's great what they're doing because obviously the risks are quite similar as we've seen, like crypto actors, if there's a centralized entity, can do a lot of that things too, just like in traditional finance. So it's good to extend those regulations, but then we don't want to extend them too much. So obviously we want standards in DeFi because just...
I mean, not just DeFi, right?
In everything, but DeFi, I like this narrative of because it's decentralized and automated, it's basically like a self-driving car. But even the self-driving car, you want to know it's safe in the first place. And if it's just a protocol where you deposit 2K because you want to test something out that's super innovative, fine. But we are aiming at billions. So I'll not put my savings in a lending protocol if I know that tomorrow people will just rock pool me or like it will get exploited because no one thought about it in the first place. Like, it doesn't make sense.
What about the last time you have invested in regulation compliance protocols, or is it on the table right now? Or
I mean, we don't kind of invest in that. But what we did, so our founder, Matthias, he founded the Swiss Blockchain Federation, which essentially wrote the white paper which the government used here in Switzerland to implement the laws, which, you know, in Switzerland was quite helpful. It set standards. And, you know, when you look in perspective regulation overall, not just DeFi, as a VC, it's really important for startups to know what can they do, right? If they don't have regulations and they're like in a gray zone, and then one day another something changes, they're done, right? There could be the possibility that they're
and
done.
that's what we see in the US.
Yes, and that's so scary.
Like all
right?
the ICOs from back in the time, now like they're being chased down. Like all the products that was supposed to be like those DAOs with like quite original products, now the SEC is just chasing them down, or the CFTC. It doesn't make sense because you build up hype and then it hurts like the public opinion. It hurts everything.
Any hype hurts.
Yeah, they have hundreds of people working for this protocol, right? They create economy, and it's difficult.
And then it's just gone.
Yeah, exactly.
In one day. And it affects the markets as well. Like when the SEC is publishing something, you can definitely see that shorting was better than going long.
Yeah.
There is one question where we're asking all our guests, are you for or against know your customer or KYC in crypto? So do you believe that it's necessary to apply to everything?
Depends how you implement it. Like currently KYCs are such a painful thing. Like the way they're implemented, or the fact that you need to submit the same documentation, like slightly tweaked documentation to all the providers, and then you have no clue what happens to the data, and sometimes you have leaks because it was not stored correctly. So if it's implemented that way, I hate it, but I can see the purpose. Plus, it costs so much. Just registering with a self-regulatory organization in Switzerland, like having a lawyer for that, having the compliance officer, so the entire thing is burdensome. And I don't like it, even if I'm a lawyer. But I see the goal behind it. So if we can find a smoother process, and blockchains can help for that, and implement like those checks, because you don't want to have like stolen funds deposited on your protocol. You don't want to have like restricted jurisdictions where, I don't know, it's funds that come from someone who is a terrorist or something. You don't want that. But on the other, like from a hacker, like if we stay in the crypto ecosystem, so then you need to identify those funds somehow, right? So we need to find different ways to do that.
And I think it's just a process, right? Getting better and better in this process at the end.
And accepting that we need to improve the process, because currently it's like, oh, we've put this in place, it's great. We added video identification, right? It's so good to have that on top, or like to have the electronic documentation. And it seems to be enough according to a lot of regulators. So if we can push them to accept that they need to improve further, it would be great.
For you would say so. It's a good point, and it's inevitable that we one day or another will accept it.
I think it's needed some sort of. The process is not there yet.
Yeah,
and it makes it really difficult for people and companies.
Yeah, we need to keep up with the pace of the regulator.
Yeah, and just add some privacy as well, because some questions that are being asked are quite intrusive and not always justified, and you don't want to disclose this kind of information to anyone. So if it's like a trusted intermediary that analyzes that, but like this weird crypto platform that just got created, do I really want to disclose all my life to them? Like even if they are licensed, I also have doubts about their survival on the long term.
And then we saw some licensed stuff.
Exactly. License is not guaranteed.
It's not guaranteed, right?
Nope.
Thank you very much for coming. It was Albus Talks. Thank you very much for watching us.